Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on May 27th, 2023, at approximately 9:25 p.m. PST. Now, let's start that again. I return to this world at this point for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this world a better place for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life to get by, and quite frankly, to prosper. Okay, the philosophies of life I talk about are the ones I personally live by. Now, before I go, this is quite literally, I've titled it impromptu too. I usually don't come on at night, but today's been screwy. In any event, we'll start off. Eternity, you are in with the gold tonight. And Emmy, welcome back with the silver. And who do we got? Crystal J, how you doing? You're in with the bronze. It's been a heck of a different day. I took a break earlier. I was on for 2.5 hours earlier today. Took a break because I had to actually get something to eat. As it turned out, I left it too long and ended up passing out. Shouldn't say that. Going to sleep. No alcohol involved. So I've done something that is just bizarre here today. Let's see. My tabletop calendar. I got 6, 7. Holy mackerel. I actually slept today, literally, since midnight, 8.5 hours. Very weird day for me. On the other hand, I figured that I'm not really expecting a whole lot of turnout tonight. Primarily because in my eyes, one of the best channels running right now happens to be Scott's Spaced Out Radio. And of course, he happens to be on right now. So I'm not expecting a whole lot of turnout tonight. Of course, in all fairness, I don't actually expect a whole lot of turnout most nights. I am wondering why that seems a little on the foggy side, but what the heck. In any event, I figured I'd come back on and tie my night off. I've got a few things I'm in the middle of working on. And because I just wiped out basically I ended up doing what most people seem to do, which is sleep about a third of their day away. And today has been a little bit screwy. Christine, you are in with honorable mention tonight. How you doing? I certainly am not planning on coming back tonight, but like I said, I would do my best. So here I am. How long I'm here for is anybody's guess at this point. So, what do I got going on? That's an excellent question. That book can go there. Just check and make sure I didn't actually miss something that I should have been paying attention to. Nope. So that's good. So, in any event, tonight when I get done here, I've got a bunch of writing I've got to get back to because I should have done it today instead of, whoa, what was that? Well, that was actually, where are we? Oh, there we go. This is one of the few people that I will actually take time out to respond to if I'm in the middle of a stream. So you're going to have to bear with me because this is my other half. So I do want to make certain that I let her know where I'm standing. The reality of it is, for me, family is absolutely the number one thing to look at. Okay. And don't get me wrong, other things are important. But for me personally, when I'm looking at things, it turns out the only three people I'm really, well, technically four, that regardless of what I'm up to, aside from driving, if possible, I will say I will stop and answer. You know, but so there we go. On live once again, we'll talk later. And yeah, I know. I'm on stream. Why am I answering a phone? Well, I'm answering a phone because it's my other half, and the only 4 people I actually will talk to, if necessary. Okay, if they call, even if I'm live stream, in case you hadn't noticed, are both my boys, either one of my boys, my other half, and my ex-wife, just in case it has to do with one of my boys. Yes, I still actually have a friendship with my ex-wife. So, with that in mind, I've got laid out here. Let's see. Let's take a look at what I got set up, because when I get done tonight... Hey, I am Pam. How are you? Glad you could join us. In your case, I really wasn't expecting to see you on tonight, but I'm glad you dropped in and chose to share a little time with us. But I have the horoscopes I'm ahead on, because I also do online horoscopes for a company. So I've got a whole pile of those I jumped the gun on. Then I've got where are we? Go back here. Then I've got Yldrbac, the Return to Paradise, which is the third installment of the Yldrbacian Chronicles, the third and last one of the latter years. Then that's a YouTube video info, which is necessary. Speaking of which, where are we? Open that up. Now, whose is that? That is an interesting question. But I was looking for this information. This is actually the link to Dave Scott's Spaced Out Radio. Let me pop that in there. And let us see. That's not what we're looking for, so we go back up here. I do appreciate that, I am, Pam. Yeah, things have been the last few days. I've actually not been streaming at a normal time. A lot going on with my eldest son moving back in, and my youngest son going through his what do we call it? Going through his graduation ceremonies and what have you. Well, at least his prom and what have you. What do we got? So, net result, I'm just spending a little time in here working on a few other things. So, what do we got here? Phil's just going, I was just playing with an AI that was recommended to me, trying to make a demon cowboy failing. Phil goes, I was just playing with an AI that was recommended to me, trying to make a demon cowboy, failing epically. I made Demon Knight, but all demon cowboys look like supermodels. Well, the really funny part about that, when you think about it, Philip, yeah, yeah, he goes male supermodels, obviously. The funny thing about the demons, okay, if you're looking at them now, there's a very big difference, by the way, between a daemon, as in Delta Alpha Echo Mother Oscar Norman. Yeah. Now, there's a very big difference between a daemon and a demon. The daemon is the race, and they are varied like you wouldn't believe. The demon, on the other hand, is a construct. And from everything I've heard about, they have a tendency of being, shall we say, decent looking. Now, but I was just about to say I've been thinking about a lot tonight, but in all fairness, I've been thinking a lot about sleeping tonight. Because after I got finished the live stream earlier, I did take the time out to have supper, which I had to get. That was why I got off the air in the first place. You know, but how about if we close that down and minimize that? Because frankly, it's in the way. But at this point, I'm looking at it. I'm going to be like, when I get done this, I was just saying, where are we? There. Okay, so I've got a number of aspects of writing I got to deal with. Not the least of which is literally taking the soft copy of the articles for the newsletter coming out later next month, as in it will be sent out on the 17th. So I've got the articles all but written. I'll have to go through and make sure they're edited properly, but I have an absolutely mind-bogglingly picky editor that is more interested in making sure the message comes out right and is written right than having it written their way. I'll tell you, that is the only functional way I can work. But, question for you. Okay, because I am going to be going down, not tomorrow because they're closed. So on Monday, I will be going down to my printer to look at getting some of the pictures that I've got that are going to be coming out in Races of the World's second printing to find out what prices are. Now, question for you guys, if you guys would be kind enough to give me a little input on this. Okay. If you'd be kind enough to give me a little bit of input on it, then the whole thing I'm looking for is which races you guys feel would be the most, from your standpoint, important to possibly get a copy of. Because I'm looking at it from merchandise standpoint, in all fairness. Where are we here? Whoop. Yeah, honestly, Philip, I don't think the AI knows the difference either. The easiest way, where are we here? I am Pam, where are we here? Don't know if I actually put that in there. No, I did not. So, we go back to here, open that up, and this is the easiest way. If you want to take a look at it, this has a list of the 7 books. This is my website that's got a list of the 7 books I have written. Although that's an interesting story, and we'll just leave that alone for a bit. But the easiest way, especially since you already know Races of the World is the one you're looking at. Where is it? There is the active email address. Now, this particular address, not only is it the direct link to where you'll most likely get a hold of me, but it's also the one I use to access PayPal. Now, if you happen to be in Canada, I also work with email transfer to the email address I just listed. Now, let's minimize that. Boy, do I ever feel scattered. Who do we got here? Blue Cruise, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And just for those of you that have not been here before, if you've got a question, even if it has nothing to do with the topic that we're discussing at the time, put it in the chat room. Sadly, that's the only place you're going to get it to me, I think. I've been trying something a little different lately. Where are we here? I've got my Facebook open, so if somebody tries to say something through I don't have it set up properly, but if somebody's trying to access me in the way of the messenger in Facebook, I do have that open. Okay, now, Blue Cruz, how you doing? I think I just said that in all fairness. And Big J, how you hopefully things are going well for you tonight. I'm just trying to get things organized because I'll tell you, first idea, don't wake up, grab a coffee, and come online. Brain is not always functioning. Although I do bill this as live, meaning you get what you get. For me, it really boils down to quite often I run on instinct. I wake up and away I go. You know, quite like today, now that I'm up, of course, bearing in mind it's 20 to 10 my time, odds are I'll be up until 3 or 4 in the morning, which is really not a brilliant idea, but that's the way it's likely to work. Because once I get done this, I got a lot I gotta get done. But what I was trying to say a moment ago, and they got badly sidetracked. If you've got a question, even if it's not in the topic that we're talking about at the time, or that anybody's talking about to speak of, ask the question, but put some part of the question in all caps, in block caps, or get a neat, like somebody came up with the idea of putting this neat little waving hand up. It still gets my attention. Okay, and I will do my best to answer it. But when I get done tonight, I got a lot of writing I gotta get to. Okay, which is why I'm likely going to be up a fair piece. Now, what was the? Oh yes. After even with all the writing I've got to do, like I said, I've got the Return to Paradise, which is the final installment of the Yldrbac Chronicles: The Latter Years. But it's not the last of the books coming out. But I've got another novel series I've already started writing because, like, I didn't have enough to do, so I started another novel and another self-help book. But the pictures for Races on the Worlds Volume 2, I've got to get those moved over tonight and get the other four names done because they're the last four that I've got to modify. Or more to the point, put down their actual ones. Yeah, I can understand that. I am Pam. I am Pam says, I'm leaving for Mexico next week, so I have lots to do this week. Not vacation. So I gotta ask the question that just pops up. That being, clearly, if you're not going there for vacation, you're going for work, or at least that's the only way I look at it. If it's not a holiday, it's the other end of it. Because, mind you, I do agree. If you're going down for a wedding or you're going down to reconnect with people, it's not always considered a vacation because quite often there's a lot more stress involved than normal. Whoa, yep, that's definitely yeah, going for a friend having surgery. That is debatably the best reason to go on a trip. Okay. And absolutely you can pass on if you would there, I am Pam. Our prayers for your friend are absolutely with you and her. Okay, hopefully things will go properly. Well, technically you don't have to be, but no. I'm really happy you are going down. There's so many times that people really do require assistance, and yet, you know, I'm not entirely surprised by that, Pam. You know, there are many times people require assistance, and yet, because of their own stubborn streaks, they have a tendency going, "No, I can do it myself." You know, I'm probably one of those people. Lord knows I won't go to a hospital if I can avoid it, and I've already told my kids, if I'm not unconscious, leave the hospital out of it. Not necessarily wise, but my trust level in hospitals, for me personally, not good. On the plus side there, I am, Pam. I'm not personally sensing any major complications. The one complication I will tell you you may have, you know, the one complication that you may have down there is getting your friend to actually relax however long they tell her she's got to take in order to let her body heal. You know, so do take a roll of duct tape. No, just kidding. But definitely our thoughts are with you. Hopefully their hospitals are a little bit more in depth than some of the ones I've seen around here. You know, but one of the things I always look at where it comes to hospitals, much as I won't go near them, I will tell you if you've got an illness or you've been hurt, I will tell you theoretically the doctors and nurses know more about the situation you're dealing with and how to treat it than you do. This is why I tell people absolutely, if you are injured, if you're sick, turn to the doctors. Now, they may not be the most brilliant people on the planet, but you can bet they know more about the medical situation than you personally do. And by the way, when I'm talking doctors, I do not mean Dr. Google, because Dr. Google is not helpful. Well, this is why I sort of, tongue in cheek, suggested taking the duct tape with you. She may not desire to sit still, but if you duct tape her legs together, she's not walking very far. Mind you, that does create its own complications. It was funny. The when I went into the when I went into the hospital with a stroke, the only reason I actually went was because my son didn't phone 911. He phoned my best friend and second best friend. I'm my best friend. I'll explain that later. The friend of mine that he phoned has been known to quite literally go, "You need to go," and if you don't agree, he'll pick you up and put you on the gurney. Cliff C, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Really happy you decided to share your time with us. So I've got what, 4? I really do have to look at that. 1, 2, 3, I do. I've got 4 books that I'll be writing in tonight once I get done there, once I decide to close the stream down. And again, like earlier, I have no idea how long I'm going to be. You know, but I will tell you this. The fact that you guys have been so supportive over the last couple of years, you know, this is why when I had the time tonight, I went, no, I'm actually going to go online the second time simply to say hi and to say, yes, things are moving. Like I said, I did manage to get supper. Wasn't much of supper, but because all I did, in all fairness, was took a can of Campbell's seafood clam chowder, added a little extra tuna for it, and away I went. From my standpoint, where it comes to soup, that is one of the few that I will actually focus on the name brand. I've yet to find the type of soup they make aside from if they make pea soup, that I won't even bother with. But I've yet to run into a type of soup they make that I'm not content with, and I'm not much of a soup eater. But then most of what I eat in the way of soup tends to be thick and it's more like a thick cream soup or thick gravy, i.e. stew. Okay, the broth soups, not overly impressed with. But again, you can take a broth soup, you can add things like mushroom soup or tomato soup to it to thicken it up anyway. And yeah, I know there's ways of adding it to make your own gravy, but that would require knowing how to cook properly. You know, all in all, that doesn't work well for me. But you think about it, problem with spatial configuration and timing and virtually no taste buds, and all of a sudden we've got a mess on our hands where it comes to trying to functionally cook. You know, but I do not even know if they have Dinty Moore up here. I am, Pam. You're down in the States somewhere, are you not? Because I don't think I've ever seen the name brand Dinty Moore. But like I said, since I don't myself, yeah, that'd be the States. You know, I will tell you, I'm finally at a point. Oddly enough, I've got to go down and get my passport. That's the other thing I got to go out for tomorrow. Is to get my. I'll be removing all of this, and then going down and getting my passport renewed. You know, in order, I'll be getting my passport renewed because in October I'm planning on making a trip down to Texas to see a couple of friends of mine. And yes, as I said, next year, I am, and I did catch the comments earlier about the apparent fiasco that some of it took place. But I'm going to be focusing on getting things moved, getting things out in the open. The reality of it is, if I wait for the government to start actually doing things that actually work in my favor, not a real brilliant idea. And Cindy, how you doing? Glad you could join us. See, I found out right now, because like I said, where it comes to being prepared for things, well, like I said quite a while back, where it comes to being prepared for things, I do recommend people have at least a couple of months of actual food in their house, preferably in canned form. Okay, canned or dried form. And the reason for that is if you've got it in freezer form and you have a power outage, freezer or fridge, you're pretty much hooped. The stuff is going to be garbage anyway. But with that in mind, right now, I think in the way of actual food in my house, I probably have something in the neighborhood, and I should make note of that. Take inventory, find out what my actual food stock is, but I'm probably looking at 4 months of food in my house right now. Yeah, no, I'm not one of these people that goes, "Oh, the world's ending." The world is ending, but nobody's got a food supply that's going to survive a couple of trillion years. Okay, nobody has that kind of food supply. And that, as near as I understand, is about when the sun is going to pop. So just because I'm nosy, let's just check something really weird on the internet. And we're just going to, I used to not be able to do this, but what the heck? When is our sun expected, trying to type with one hand here, to go supernova? Type that in, and oh, there we go. See, okay, I'm a little overstated. What I typed into the internet is when is our sun expected to go supernova? And the answer comes back in about 5 billion years. So if you're listening to people that are standing there going, "The world's ending, we're all going to die," you've got to be prepared. Here's whatever you need to buy. Make penance, whatever, because we're all going to die. They are right. We are. Okay. But Earth's sun, the one that keeps us all running, is expected to die in about 5 billion years. Now, that's only a rough estimate. They may be off by a billion or so. But realistically, does it matter at that point? So, I mean, I'm looking at this going, that's going to be a heck of a mess. Mankind as we know it is already on the decline. In case you hadn't noticed, you know, in case you hadn't noticed, number one, we take a look at the amount of people that are focusing on the negative side. And because of that, whenever you look at a video or you repost a video that is of a negative nature, I do strongly encourage you to listen, watch, or repost two positively oriented videos, or either videos, podcasts, news reports, whatever, as a ratio. That's just it. I am, Pam. I've made the comment to many people. If there's going to be a nuclear war, would somebody mind giving people my address? Yes, there are several people living in my area. I just would like to be gone without having to pick up the mess again. Okay. I lived through the Exodus in ancient Egypt. I lived through the collapse of the Minoan Empire. I lived through Pompeii. Okay. I lived through the Black Death, and I was always there to help pick up the pieces after the fact. I just as soon not have to do that again. Well, funny thing there, Cindy. Much as we are, you got to remember, mankind, in the human body, actually grows faster than it dies. And if the scientist's assessment is correct, which I'm pretty certain they're right, every cell in your body is replaced every 7 years. With this in mind, if you stay focused on healing, okay, and on not putting excess toxin into your body, the odds are you'll live a whole lot longer. You know, the fact of the matter is, I'm told, and I'm sure you were told the same thing. As you get older, your eyes are going to fail, you're going to develop arthritis, you're going to have digestive problems and sleep problems. Well, where it comes to sleep, can't really call that an age thing for me. Okay. I've been sleeping this oddball shift for years. Okay. It first started, I think the offset in my own sleeping pattern, in my own sleeping time, happened because of one little detail. Okay. Years ago, I was looking at it and I got curious because people kept talking to me about the idea that they needed 8 hours of sleep. And like today, I had, what was that, 8.5, I think? 6, 7, 9.5 hours today. Stupid amount of sleep. So am I expecting to go to bed tonight? Not really. Okay. Primarily because way overslept. This is also part of my excuse, and I'll call it an excuse, for being a bit scattered. But I got thinking about it. 8 hours of sleep in one night, you're sleeping a third of your life. Okay, now if that's the case, you know, I looked at it and went, what would happen if you cut your sleep to 4 hours a night, given that you did not lose quality of life or you did not lose your health, which would be quality of life? Okay, so I calculated it out just because I was curious and found out if you cut your sleep to 4 hours a night, you gain about a month and a half living time every year. Okay, that's what started the question. What I wasn't expecting was my body to go flip. Okay, let's not sleep 8 hours anymore. And it's almost like a light switch was flicked. Yeah, I can understand that. Cindy, I haven't actually been to the East Coast of the States in 8 years. Yeah, I was out there in 2014. 9 years. I was out there in 8 and a half, whatever, in 2014 for the Experiencer Speak UFO conference. One day I may get out there again. I don't know. I will tell you this. Okay, I did draw up both a bio for my books and a bio for if somebody wants to go on air and wants me to come on their radio station. Okay, I put a bio together and then went over it with my editor to make sure that we had as much done right as we could. Okay, because will I come on other shows? Absolutely. Okay, because there are certain topics here I will not discuss. Okay, like I won't get into any major discussion where it comes to politics in any country or where it comes to religion, because I already got slapped on the wrist once for making a comment. Where is it? Oh, that's why I'm looking over here and don't need it over there. I already got slapped on the wrist once by YouTube for making a comment that I don't even recall what it was. But, it's very simple. You know, for me, it's a simple issue of I know what my mind is like. Absolutely scrambled half the time. A friend of mine, he actually gave me a bumper sticker one year. It says, I don't suffer from insanity. I enjoy every minute of it. But I look at the word insanity and go, there's a bit of a question here. When you break the word down, insanity means, at least in my understanding, in the condition of sanity. So if you're insane, you're actually in the condition of being sane. So in that respect, I'm doing not half bad. But it's been a long time since I've actually watched the sunrise. Well, no, because I'm usually up by like 4 o'clock in the morning. But today I'm looking at it going, I got a whole lot I desire to get done. So I absolutely will be getting it done. This is why I called it impromptu, is I really wasn't planning on much of anything. But I'm just looking at this. My advertising budget for my company is laid out very nicely now. It was nicely in my eyes. What did I do with the other side of this? Should be right here, I think. This is a whole pile of paperwork that I got to go through. But I'm actually looking for one thing in particular. Where are we here? Oh yeah, I've got to get that written out. I've got a new poem I'm working on that's gonna come out in the first newsletter. Okay, that's my will. Okay, don't know what I did with that, and that's okay. That stuff I'll have to go through. But I'm looking at this going, you know, I got so much I've got to get done, but I really should think about getting organized. So, what do we do here? It's funny, financially, I'm in better shape now than I have been in a very long time. And I did that after I came to the conclusion that being employed didn't work all that well. You know, the funny thing is, the company I was working for closed, right? Then I had to fight for 5 months to actually get the EI that was supposed to be coming to me, the employment insurance. But in that 5 months, I came to the understanding that going back to work for somebody else was just a stupid move. Okay. Because let's face it, working for myself, as long as I can drive the income levels up, okay, will work out much better. But think of this. Okay, I've got EI till August or September, so I've got a couple of months left that I'll be able to collect from. If I can get into school, this is great. If I can get it paid for, and I may just turn around and go after a student loan and just be done with it. Which, come to think of it, is not a really bad idea. By the way, curiosity, guys, but where it comes to the student loan, as in a loan from the government, what is your guys' take on it as far as whether it's a good idea? Just a thought. Because, like I said, the sad part is bloodline, I don't exactly get along with all that well. But, oh well. So I find that I get so much more assistance, and I'm referring to intellectually speaking or emotionally speaking. I get so much more assistance here than I do from them from my own bloodline, which is sad, but very true in my eyes. And they'll probably argue the point if they ever find out about it. But I'm thinking maybe it's time to really look at the idea of online learning and doing a course and actually getting it. I actually I've started 2 courses in the past 10 years, never finished either one of them. But maybe it's time I start seriously looking at that side of it. Curiosity, but what's your input on that one, guys? That way, whether you want to say guys or guys and gals or whatever. The sad part there, Cindy, up here, if you get a student loan, from my understanding, I haven't looked at it recently, but from my understanding, if you get a student loan, if you're in school, you don't ever have to repay it. But starting approximately 6 months after you finish school, you end up turning around and having to repay it. Okay. But the way I figure it, if I can do that, matter of fact, and I'm thinking it might be an idea. Still, it was just something I was sitting there just talking. I went, if the government won't help and I've got this other option, why not put it to use? Okay, so we're sitting in. So, in your eyes, Cindy, and I'm thinking I know where we're going with this, but in your eyes, is this a viable option? As in, get a student loan so I've got all my bills covered and focus on the study while I'm working on the company. Because I'm not stopping my stream. I'm not stopping. I may have to adjust timing on it. I won't be stopping writing. The newsletter I'm just starting to put out will continue. The schooling will be done on my schedule, not on somebody else's, because nobody else's is going to work for me. You know, that's just the reality of it. What do we got here? Yeah. Phillips says, talk to someone who knows your financial situation with above average financial intelligence, financial literacy, and financial knowledge. That's what I would do in your shoes. Thanks so much for your input there, Philip. I do appreciate it. I just got hung up on the with somebody with above average financial intelligence. I'm telling you, that's setting the bar low from what I've seen. You know, Um, I don't honestly know if it's what I desire. I know what I do desire is to figure out how to market properly and how to actually work with the computer. Because I'll tell you, 40 years of that was wrong. 40 years of fighting with it. I've been working on computers since 1979, and I've never made any headway in understanding the poor things. You know, except that if I get agitated, they have serious problems. But I have come to the understanding that because of the way the world's going, and I mean on the positive side, I'm not talking about the world ending anytime soon. Okay. But clearly, we are not going back down the road. We're not going down the road of, at least I hope not, of going back into the Dark Ages. You know, I mean, there's a lot of complications that we have to overcome. But the one thing I will tell you, and this is one of the reasons I decided to put the newsletter out. Yes, there's a lot of newsletters that are out, and people put them out all the time. I will tell you, I'm not bringing in a graphic designer to modify anything. The funny thing is, Cindy, Bill Gates made a comment decades ago to a university, to a graduation class, not university, to a grade 12 graduating class. And he made a brilliant comment. Okay, he says, we will never use more than 64K of RAM. Okay, about 30 years later, he goes, I have never been so wrong in my entire life. Okay, I mean, here we are using gigabytes of RAM as compared to bytes. But the more focused on the computer we get and drift away from our own efforts, the more problems we are setting up for. You realize if we have a massive EMP pulse right now, our last 100 years of data is gone. Manufacturing, and even more than that, really, but manufacturing procedures, simple farming techniques are gone because most of it has been put on digital form. And if we have a massive EMP pulse, the computers are toast. By the way, and this is why we don't go after the oil companies. You shut down the oil companies, we lose a lot of your foodstuffs, a lot of your plastic, all of your plastics, much of your clothing, much of your heat, much of your transportation. It is absolutely mind-boggling. And of course, the manufacturing just goes right out the window. So this is why I'm not bothering with the idea of, well, what if we end up with this EMP pulse? Well, if we do, we better learn to adapt really, really quickly. See, I've got an advantage over you. Okay, and what I mean by that, Philip goes, one generation prior to me, I have 2 CPAs and 1 financial advisor tax preparer in the family. When I hear them talking, I think, what are you guys talking about? I'm just confused. And that's just it. Here is the best financial advice. And honestly, I'm not a financial advisor. But here's the best financial advice I can give you at all. And as far as I'm concerned, pretty much the most viable available to everybody, regardless of how much money you've got. If you desire to have more money in your account, spend less than you're earning. Simple, straightforward. If you spend less than you're earning, you will build your bank account. If you settle for, like, I've tried investments where I've gone into mutual funds and have this incredible growth rate, or, retirement plans and what have you that have this incredible tax break. And I'll tell you, after being guided by financial advisors into bankruptcy twice, the best thing I can find to invest in are 2 things. If I'm going after investment as in paper, I'm looking at GICs, guaranteed income certificates issued by the government. They don't go down in value, period, from everything I've ever seen. That'd be one. The other thing that I will quite readily invest in is people. Now, you've heard me say I don't have a lot of tolerance for them anymore. But the reality is people are what will make this world different. Okay? It is our ability to adapt and our ability to work with each other given the right impetus, that will make this world turn around properly. Okay. Now this is why, where it comes to the radio, to the video streams, the live streams. Okay. Number one, unless Dave tells me otherwise, I'm not planning on coming off of Spaced Out Radio. Even if it means I've got to reschedule things on occasion, so be it. This stream, I'm just going to continue working with. I do hate when that happens. Vertigo. From my standpoint, it boils down to putting things in place. See, finances, when I was in grade 11, they wouldn't give me a break. They wouldn't let me take a spare. So I said, okay, look, since I can't get into the sciences, put me in accounting, but let me work at my pace. So I took a 1-year course, and they dropped me in and said, here's the information, work at your pace. I took a 1-year course where I spent most of my time helping the other students, and I racked off the entire course on accounting in 6 months, while a third to half my time was spent helping the other kids. Yeah, and Philip's just adding here. Even though I'm confused, I know enough to know that most politicians fudge the truth when they talk about finances. Explained to me by family members with very different political views. Absolutely correct. Yeah, I don't doubt it does. I'm lucky. It passes pretty quick most of the time. Cindy was just offering that meclizine works wonderful for vertigo. Fortunately, I don't suffer from it very often anymore. It's just, and this is why I've got the fan running behind me, because it tends to be a different issue it tends to be an issue of if my temperature gets too high, I run into problems. Yeah, Cliff, Cliff, Cliff is just adding here. No money has left the planet. Well, unless somebody took a dollar bill up with them. But this is why I say when people talk about the kind of the world going to digital finances, you're not getting gold bullion off the planet. Okay. And besides that, from what I gather, the digital money that is there yet. Christine, it is right now, according to the what do we call this thing? According to the weather report on my phone, right now it is 19 degrees out. Now, to your way of thinking, down the states, that works out to 37, 50. About, gee, that's not bad. About 69 degrees. Just shy of room temperature. But we've been hitting in the low 30s lately, meaning 90 to 100 during the day. Yeah, see, I like that temperature, but I'm overheating right now. Quite often I'm a lot more comfortable. Like I shut my heat off now, and I leave it off until somewhere in September, October, if the temperature drops. But I always found if I get cold, put on socks, put on a shirt or a sweater, you're good. You know, see, no, Philip, not Fahrenheit, 19 Celsius. Okay, which is just in the mid 60s Fahrenheit. I ran into a problem a number of years ago. I ran into a group of vacationers. They came up on a bus tour with buses from Texas all the way over to California, and they were mad Because I asked them, I says, why are you guys so upset? Well, it's so hot here. We were told that when we come across the border, we've got to bring winter clothes because it drops from 90 to 40, to 40 degrees here. I looked at the guy and I said, they said it drops from 40 and down to 40 degrees as you cross the border. And I'm thinking, there's a problem here. And then it dawned on me. I looked at him and I said, wait a minute, you think in Fahrenheit? He goes, well, yeah. I said, we don't. We think in Celsius. So, yeah, it was 90 degrees down there. And thank heavens it dropped to 40 this week. Because last week it was 43. He goes, well, what does that mean? I said, it means it was 112-ish. Right. I says, now we're down under the 100-degree mark. So, yeah, very happy it dropped. Now, if I go, where is it? Wonder if I've got that. No, that's US. I don't know if I've got that, and I'm just not going to look for it. But no, where it comes to temperature, I figure I'll be up for a while now because, well, frankly, I have to be. Because trying to sleep after that length of sleeping ain't going to work that well. But, hey, Jimmy, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been to Indiana itself. Yeah, I haven't been to most of the states. Uh, well, I will tell you, Philip, putting an ice pack on my chest will bring my temperature down. Of course, I've got a really neat little kick to it. You put a cold ice on my chest, my heart will stop like that, which, granted, will cool my temperature. But I'm thinking it might have a slightly annoying side effect. You know, see, I mean, I love the idea of staying cool. I just haven't figured out how to really do that. But then my temperatures always run warm. Both my kids, when they were tiny, used to look at me and go, and they used to refer to me as their walking heating blanket. Yeah, I grew up on the coast on Vancouver Island, which is on the west coast of Canada. But I will tell you, surrounded by water, talk about humid. Cliff goes, "What if Earth is not flat, but space is fake? Past where Voyager 1 went. Recently came across energy it could not identify." Okay, let's put that in perspective for a sec there, Cliff. There is no question I'm taking all science out of the equation, except for the fact that I've seen it. As far as Earth being flat, not flat. Okay, I can tell you it's not exactly round, but it's so much easier to build a model of it that's round than it is to build it the shape it is. Okay, because if you think about it, you've got a ship there, you've got a planet that has a staggering amount of water. Okay, and a lot of space in amongst the molecules. And you take it rifling through space, you get it's more pear-shaped than it is round. Okay, because you get the leading edge of it, and then the majority of it in a bubble behind it. But the thing is, the Earth does not go around the sun. The sun is doing this. Okay, all of the planets are trailing behind it and spinning as well. Okay, that actually isn't a bad idea. You know, fortunately, right now, that's to you there, Philip. You know, it was funny when I first got married, my wife at the time, we were, barely a year into our marriage. And she turned around and decided, I'm gonna do something funny. I'm gonna start a water fight. Well, the temperature was 40, i.e., 100 degrees out. And she hit me with a stream of cold water. Well, my heart stopped and I stopped right now. And there were no more water fights. And then years later, when we had our first kid, when we had our first boy, she kept bugging me about I wouldn't run the bath water. I says, no way. I finally got fed up. I said, fine, I'll run the bath water, but you're checking the temperature before you put him in it. So I ran the bath water. She went to set him in it without checking. I stopped her. I said, no, check the water. So she put her hand in the water and pulls it back. She looked at me and goes, what are you trying to do? Poach him? Can't you tell that's hot? And I took my hand and I put it in the water all the way up to here. And I left it sit there, palm flat on the, on the bottom of the tub. I left it sit there for 2 or 3 minutes. When I pulled it out, it was beet red all the way to here. And I looked at my wife and I went, no, I can't tell the temperature. Well, I heard it put one day, Philip. There was a cat lover that came on YouTube and made a real brilliant on Facebook, sorry. Made a brilliant comment. There is no way this planet can be flat. No way at all. Okay. And when people asked him why, he says, look, there are way too many cats on this planet. If the planet were flat, they would knock everything off it. Okay. As for the other part there about space itself being fake, there's only one thing that I know of that is fake about the space. And it's not fake. It's a question of it's not understood. Okay. Humans have designated with the periodic table of elements that the hydrogen element has one electron. Therefore, it's the lowest on the elemental table. But they neglect the other one, what I refer to as a null element. You see, it's a proven fact, at least in scientific realms, that electrons randomly leave one electron, one molecule, one atom, to connect with another. Now, if you think about it, the two basic elements, the first two elements, hydrogen and helium, one electron and two electrons. Let's take two hydrogen elements, two hydrogen atoms. The electron from one hydrogen atom just leaves the hydrogen atom. Now, this leaves an atom with no electrons. That's what I call a null atom. Okay, but it is still an atom. That is the space between electrons. Okay, or between atoms. Now that electron moving picks up another hydrogen atom, and all of a sudden the second hydrogen atom all of a sudden becomes a helium atom. Now it's that shift that we take a look at, that space in between the atoms that have electrons, that null space is what I call it. I don't know what the scientific term is. Okay, and frankly, as William Shakespeare put it, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Now, Cindy's going, how did you get these abilities? In my case, the day I was born, I flatlined. Now, let's go back half a step. Every corporeal human that is born is psychically aware. Every single one of them. Okay. Now, what we have discovered is trauma causes an enhancement of your abilities. Now, most humans, all humans, well, really, are born with usually 5 senses and one rudimentary sixth, which is a catch-all. But every time you go through severe trauma, your higher senses kick into gear a little better. Okay. What do we got here? But when we're talking about trauma, understand by the time, yes, Flatliners was a fabulous movie and did a really good job of it. You know, if I recall correctly, that was Kevin Bacon was one of the primary stars. But I did watch Flatliners. I can tell you from practical experience, it's very real. Okay. Well, that was different. Anyway, on the day I was born, on the day I was born, Cindy, I flatlined. And in all fairness, the reason being, I remember my birth. And those of you that think birth is a wonderful experience, frankly, don't remember your birth. But I was born, and I'll tell you, going from a warm, quiet, subdued environment that is very comfortable, even while I was in utero, I got stabbed. I come down and I get forced out this tiny channel into bright light, freezing cold temperature. Some giant grabbed hold of me, grabs me by the legs, turns me upside down and beats the living stuffing out of me while poking all sorts of things into various holes. At the same time, my parents literally recoiled from me, because I was born mottled green and black. And, I was told that that was a severe case of jaundice, which maybe, I don't know. But the doctors took me from there and put me on a really hard surface and turned on these incredibly bright lights, burning hot as all get out, and left me there. And I went, no, oh yeah, and let's not forget. They tied me up and stabbed me. Now, this is from my perspective. Okay, bear in mind what they were doing was putting IV lines into me and what have you. But, but I'm in the incubator and I'm like, no way, I'm done. So I packed up. Now, if you know anything about astral travel, you leave a silver umbilical cord so you can find your body again. Well, in my case, I didn't want to find my body again, so I didn't bother with the umbilical cord. I just went, I'm gone. That trip, I ran into the Council of 12. And they met me and they went, well, where do you think you're going? I said, I'm heading home. I'm done. No, 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 no. You signed a contract. You've got a very big job to do. So you have to go back. I said, I didn't sign up for this abuse. So we had a bit of a interesting discussion. Long story short, they brought me back to my body and put me back. Okay. What they didn't tell me about was in order to get me back in, these geniuses had just beaten the stuffing out of me, stabbed me multiple times and tied me up, turned around and electrocuted me to get my heart started again. And so of course when that happened, I'm all of a sudden slapped back in. Now the funny thing there, Philip, is when I was still in the first trimester, I did run into a friend of mine, into a lady that used to live on the military base I grew up on at the time I was born. And according to her, there was actually a document that asked everybody that was in their first trimester to report to their GP for some sort of an inoculation. And I don't recall what the inoculation was for, but it was something along the lines of the thalidomide problem. So when that happened, I got that confirmation. I'm like, okay, so the document I found out about was real. And then my dad on his deathbed reconfirmed all of it and was very specific about it. Might have been, I don't know. We think it was, it might have been rubella, and like that was day one when I flatlined. At 20 months old, okay, no, I didn't have polio. That much I do know. At 20 months old, I took a fever of 108.4 that lasted 2 weeks, flash fried my hypothalamus and my hippocampus. Okay, now when that happened, okay, again, psychic ability is enhanced every time you go through trauma. Okay, so at 20 months old, I went through that. And, to the point that we ended up with all kinds of neat little problems. Okay, I did manage to come out of that one as an epileptic. Right. So that was fine. Well, I don't know if fine is the right term, but I went through that. And then, of course, shortly after I got out of the hospital, here I am, 2 years old. You're going to have to give me half a second here because I've got to go grab a coffee. I will be right back and I will finish that little answer. Okay. Necessary thing, liquid, also known as coffee. So, um, anyway, at 20 months old, I had the fever that literally I ended up dying because of again. Again, we have secondary trauma. Now, somewhere between 20 months and 2 years, aka 24 months, I'm sitting at the end of the dining room table. I've still got the dining room table today. Now, understand this table is 3.5 feet wide and 6 feet long. It was literally made for me because I was on the way, and my parents didn't have enough room. So, Dad put a bowl of pablum down on my high chair, and I looked at the thing and went, "No." I didn't say a word. I just looked at it, turned my nose up, and pushed it aside. I did not push it onto the floor. Okay, I just pushed it out of the way. But Mama had set a big bowl, like and I've got the bowl still, right? A big, I don't know if it's stoneware or what, but in any event, it's about that big around. Okay, and about that deep. Mom filled it with mashed potatoes. And I'm sitting at one end of the table. The tabletop is completely arborite, one piece. So I looked at it and I reached out and I just put my hand towards the table 6 feet away. And I thought for a minute, and that whole bowl shot the length of the table into my hand and onto my table, onto my high chair. Well, that was an event in itself. And dad immediately turned around and told mom because everybody was really in shock. Can't imagine why. And I ended up getting taken to what I now know as the MyLabs, the military laboratories. And through that, I mean, you want trauma, that'll do it for you. So every time a child goes through trauma, okay, your senses kick up a little. Now, the most common forms of trauma, honestly, birth is actually not the one that triggers it most, that triggers the enhancement. But every child that is born alive has psychic capacity. Puberty is the most common time for it to jump into hyperdrive. Okay. Next would be menopause or pedopause, male or female, depending. Okay. But I will tell you, near death does enhance it. Trauma and shock will enhance it more. In my case, it became very problematic because by the time I was 4, I was clinically dead 4 times. This is basically why my senses went into overdrive. Now I just simply trust them more than I trust logic. Now, going back here for half a second, because I babbled on here a fair chunk. Oh, in all fairness, Cindy, I didn't actually survive it. But you know, and it's not so much epilepsy can give it to you as what causes the epilepsy can. Okay, it's that trauma that comes about. Now, I did discover a cure for epilepsy, and I strongly recommend nobody uses it. Okay, because the cure that I found for epilepsy, they still list me as epileptic, but I haven't had a seizure. I haven't had a grand mal seizure since I was 8 or 9. Of course, in 8 or 9, between 8 and 9, I had a fatal grand mal seizure that they had to restart my heart with again. Now, for those of you going, well, where's your proof? Tell you what, happened on a military base, you get the fun on finding that. All I've got is my memories and confirmation from dad. Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly there, Philip. I prefer not experiencing the trauma either. But, when you think about it, I grew up on a military base. So the nightmares during the Vietnam War, by the way, and bearing in mind I'm an uncontrolled telepath, all of the stuff that people were coming home with nightmares for, I had the wonderful experience of actually going through it with them. Yeah, Phil's just going, I reading horror helps. I don't understand why it helps, but it does. Reading extreme horror can literally relax my heart. When yeah, when before it had been racing. Uh, you know, that's the sad part, Philip. I'm not even going to try and explain that one because I'll tell you, when I'm watching, like, I can be very, very unhappy. I can be very blasé, if you will. But when I watch movies that have extreme odds and extreme violence, now bear in mind, I'm a pacifist. Okay. But when I watch somebody doing something on a movie, okay, not in real life. In real life, I am a pacifist. Out there, you might think it a different thing. Okay, when I go off world. But in the real world, I'm very much against violence. I would leave a room if I figured there's going to be violence. I just don't deal with it well. This is why I couldn't kill a fish properly, even for fishing's sake. You know, but I'm just looking at this. Cindy goes, my niece had one seizure as a kid and never had one again. Yeah, they are. What happens, and I don't know if the doctors have figured this out, but as a young child, your brain is growing so fast, it overloads and trips out. You know, in my case, I was having a minimum of 3 grand mal a day. Grand mal seizure, by the way, is when you'd fall down on the floor and do the dead fish routine. Okay. So, I mean, from my standpoint, the whole world was kind of screwy to start with. But all of these things, including while I was in the my labs, watching 197 of my friends get murdered in front of my eyes in various different fashions, but none of them were slow. Okay. Yeah, and Blair's just adding, Phil's just adding, ancient aesthetics included sublime horror, but I think sublime these days is only beauty. Quite often, yeah. Now, I'm presuming that's some sort of a medication. The Depakote. Okay, that you're talking about there, Cindy. I'm not on any medication for anything, much to my doctor's chagrin. You know, they wanted me on all kinds of medication for my heart, and I looked at them and went, not going to happen. But then my heart, it's funny. My blood pressure goes too high. My heart stops. My heart stops. My blood pressure drops, and my heart restarts. Kind of a neat little trade off. Yeah. No, I haven't had a seizure I haven't had a grand mal since I was between 8 and 9. I haven't even had a petit mal since I was about 16. It's just still listed on my bill, it's still listed on my medical that I'm an epileptic, which is great because being an epileptic, they won't take my blood. And it's funny, it's not being the woman that told me this. She goes, look, your blood is fine. But she goes, even though you've not had a seizure in that length of time, taking that much blood from you could cause a seizure. And she says, if you think we have trouble getting people in here to donate blood now, watch how much difficulty we have if you pull a dead fan, if you have a seizure right here. Right. She says, we're going to have people scattering. And so she says, no, we will not take your blood. I'm like, okay, works out well for me. I tell you, Philip, that there are 4 places I agree that violence is acceptable. Okay, and these are the 4: in movies, in books, in video games, and in mutually agreed upon physical conflict, like MMA or boxing. Other than that, I mean, there's a lot of sports that have physical contact, but I don't call it violence unless they decide to have a fight. You know, but those 4 methods, I have no problem with. They can talk about all the violence you'd like. And I'll tell you, if you choose to pick up Birth of the Wolf Pack, if you choose to read the Yldrbac Chronicles, okay, I will tell you, graphic violence. I choreograph the conflicts. And in the first chapter, because it starts off in a bar, post-apocalyptic. And I started off there. In the first chapter, there's a bit of a fight that it just gets touched on. In the second chapter, there is a 10-to-1 conflict. 7 dead, 2 badly wounded, one gets away, one guy gets away in reasonable shape. Okay, not totally. Well, I guess technically he was wounded. He ended up with a bloody nose. But that's against the pacifist of the party. Okay. That's against the guy that doesn't want to fight. And even at the beginning of the fight, he tries to talk them out of it. Carl, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And thank you so much for sharing your time. With us. This is absolutely, I called it impromptu too, because I was on earlier today. Yeah, Las Vegas goes, it's better to be on dialysis than just die and get it over with. Oh, is it better to be on dialysis than to just die and get it over with? Well, from my standpoint, and that is a personal call. Okay, that really is a personal call. My brother was on dialysis and lived a reasonably normal life, at least for him. Myself, I won't even, they just sent me a medical form. They want me to go in and get tested for colon cancer because I'm 60. And I'm like, I'm not playing the lab rat routine. If I've got colon cancer and it kills me, oh well, it's the way I haven't died this time. I've already told my boys I'm not going to get tested. I won't go to the doctor to find out if my blood pressure is too high. I've got a blood pressure machine. As a matter of fact, where is it? Right about there. See, I did find when I had the stroke that it was kind of necessary to keep this around because every time I run into a problem, this little tool, this is why I didn't say I was a technophobe. I just don't like modern doctors, primarily because they seem to be, in my case, rather dense. But, yeah, I am Pam is just going, do you want quantity of life or quality of life? All depends. And Sydney's going, I want both. Absolutely, Philip. If it's mutually agreed upon, then there is no coercion. You know, no sort of threat, no sort of blackmail. Oh, Muhammad Ali was fabulous. You know, but here's the neat little thing. You know, when you take, I ran into a 12-year-old that had gotten into boxing. I asked him, I says, what prompt would possibly prompt you to get into boxing when you know people are going to beat you? Right? He goes, well, for me, he says, I've got a temper problem. So if I get really bad wound up and really in a bad mood, I can go down to the boxing ring and they know I'm going to be beating on them. He said, that's why I do it. I said, that's a perfect reason. Takes the conflict and puts it where it should be. For me, when I get stressed out, I end up writing. And I'll tell you, some of the things I've written while stressed out have been a little violent, to say the least. You know, Christine, Christine is just saying, I listen to doctors, I take my pills, I want to be alive for my adult daughter as long as I can. You know, and I definitely say, I definitely, Christine, from your standpoint, that's the way you look at it. I don't have a problem with that. I encourage you. As a matter of fact, I encourage pretty much everybody to talk to the doctors. They just can't cope with my healing rate. Okay. So this is why I personally don't go. But I have told my own kids and my ex-wife, you've got to, make your appointments, go and talk to the doctor. They know more than the average person does. So it stands to reason. Turn to the one that knows it, at least theoretically. You know, but that's why I say it's very necessary that, if you want violence, there's no problem. If you want to go to the doctor, I've sent countless people back to the church, to a church or a temple. I've sent countless people back to find spiritual support. Now, I will tell you, I won't set foot in a church or in a temple. I'm not afraid of them. I just am not interested in being converted. It's been tried before, it didn't work all that well. And of course, there is this other neat little bonus of the fact that I remember what went on 2,000 years ago and what went on about 800 years ago. Okay. Nope, sorry. Witch hunts were about 400 years ago. So where it comes to religion, I've got memories that really do kind of lean towards staying away from it. You know, but when it comes to the doctor, if you're ill, if you're having a problem, okay, if you're having a medical problem and you don't understand it, talk to somebody that has at least theoretically studied it. Okay. I mean, I defy so many of the rules that the doctors have about what works and what doesn't and what recovery rate should be. They can't keep up with it, so what the heck? Now, where are we here? So absolutely, the one thing I will absolutely tell you, much as I won't go to a doctor, this does not mean they're not a good option for most people. Okay. And I will tell you, when the doctor that repaired this arm when I snapped it, you can't really see it now, but there's a scar that runs that long because they had to plate the thing to hold the bone in place. The poor doctor, he plated it, but in 10 days, sorry, 9 days. I broke it on the 3rd. On the 12th, when I went back in to get the bandage changed, the bone had already completely healed. The poor doctor just looks at me and goes, "What the heck is this? Like, I can't even cast that." I says, "Well," I says, "can you at least put a brace on it? It still hurts like the dickens." But for me, that's just been the way my healing rate goes. You know, that's an excellent idea there, Philip. The researcher app, as far as I understand, works out well. Google Doctor, not a good idea. Okay. Primarily because they come up with so many odd things that you should look at, like not the least of which is when they on Google Doctor they tell you, oh, exercise doesn't work. Cutting back on the amount of food you eat doesn't work for dropping weight. I'm living proof, and so are a lot of other people that will tell you if you don't eat as much, if you don't put as many calories into your body as you burn off, you will drop weight. Yeah. Where are we here? Christine is just going, there are different ways of doing things. Absolutely. And from what I gather, in different countries, from what I gather, Canada, where it comes to their methods of looking at things, are a little backwoods. And the reason I say this is they had me to deal with my heart when I had the stroke. They put me on metformin. Now, when I got looking into it, metformin in the States was removed from the table because of complications. Well, I removed it from mine because I didn't want to take it. I didn't actually know that was the problem. Yeah, well, that's the funny thing. Canada's even worse than the States in a lot of ways. Although we've got some brilliant scientists, you know, I mean, it's really kind of a weird setup, but I do not short people on their ability. Kind of works like it. You know, I call a doctor Google because you go, this is a symptom I've got, and it'll come up with all these neat little ideas. And not a whole lot of them make sense. Oh, sure it is. It causes kidney failure, apparently. Yeah, they had me on a number of different. Well, it was funny because they gave me a list of medications when I had the stroke. Because at the time I had the stroke, I was also 246 pounds. So they gave me all these medications. The problem was they wanted me on metformin, they wanted me on something for my blood pressure, and something for my pulse rate. Bear in mind, I suffer from PTSD triggered by the hospital. I get on the hospital grounds and my blood pressure goes through the roof. So, and they had something else. I think it was for, oh, it was for because it diagnosed me. with type 2 diabetes. So I took these prescriptions to my doctor, and they gave me a blood thinner, but the blood thinner was aspirin 81 milligram. So I took this list to the doctor because she says, what do you have? What have they got you on? So I hand her the list and she goes, yeah, this is a standard pack. So what of this are you going to take? I said, well, I'll take the baby aspirin when I feel it's necessary. And other than that, I'm not taking it. And she goes, I kind of figured as much. So I'm not writing a prescription for it. I'll do what I have to at this point, but don't worry about it. I said, you do know I'm not taking it. She goes, yeah, I figured that. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just looking what Sydney was writing here. Where are we? Yeah, this Januvia. Some of the older medications, in my opinion, are better for one primary reason. They've got less additives than what the other ones had. And I am Pam, I absolutely agree with you. This is why I say when a doctor prescribes a medication, don't just categorically go, I'm not taking it. I do that because of my own personal experience. Okay. But I don't even do it for my kids or my ex. You know, I just look at it and go, if that's what they're telling you to take, that's the knowledge they're working with. The fact that I've got a different knowledge base and different experience base, absolutely there, Philip. I look at it this way. If I keep my stress level down, and I have learned to control my blood pressure to a degree. Okay. Not nearly what my father used to do. My father, the doctor, would say your blood pressure is too high. And while he's on the machine, my father would drop his blood pressure. And it would just go blur. That was the end of it. The doctor would just look at me and go, what is this? He says, well, you told me the blood pressure was too high. You know, but when you talk about, Philip, when you talk about good times with good people is always healthy. It's really weird for me, but the people in this chat room are where I find a lot of my relaxation. And it does slow things down enough that I can actually function. That I can get other things done. And can you believe we're on now. This is actually coming on. Well, we're just past the hour and a half mark. Christine, here's the thing. In the States, I saw this about 15 years ago. The United States medical facility did a phenomenal thing. Well, thank you so much for that, Christine. The United States medical people did a phenomenal thing. There were at the time of 15 years ago, there was a report that came in. Okay, there was a report that came in that said that the United States citizens had a major obesity problem, but they found a rather remarkable cure. Okay, what they did was they went, okay, we are going to add this other category, morbidly obese. If you're 500 pounds or more over your recommended weight, you're morbidly obese. Well, amazingly, the number of obese people all of a sudden dropped 2 million people. Of course, then you had the morbidly obese category that all of a sudden had 2 million people on it. But it did cure the 2 million on it that were called obese. Um, what do we got here? I'm just, what did we do? Yeah. So, I mean, from my standpoint, it really boils down to an interesting situation. Lovey love, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Yeah, I know I'm on really late tonight. Kind of an odd thing. Oh, fear is a phenomenal killer. What do we got here? I move the mouse. Phil's just going, fear is a mind killer. It's an old proverb from the Far East. You could also translate fear as worry, anxiety, stress, loneliness, etc. Mental hygiene is very good for being healthier. Absolutely. Could not agree with you more, I don't think. You know, the nice little part about it, where it comes to stress, I found out that I really had to back up, and this is why I walked out of mainstream consulting. Right. I will still deal with people's issues. I will still handle, private calls and what have you. But am I going to go back to work for a consulting line or for a psychic line? Not a prayer. Okay. And I will tell you, much as I was talking about going back to school, finding a course and taking it, it won't be in psychology because in psychology, if I get my degree there, all of a sudden I have to worry about what my mouth does. Because there's a lot of things you won't be able to say. Like, for instance, I've been asked, I was asked by one person, am I going to, I'm really ill. Am I going to die? And I looked at them and went, get your stuff in order because you're not going to make it much more than X number of months. But I think the funnest one I pulled off was in the hospital one day. I went down to visit my brother who was in extended care. As I'm walking down the hallway, I saw this little old lady that was she was hooked up on all kinds of bags and what have you. And I stopped and I looked at her. And bear in mind, she had to be in her 80s, maybe older. Nathan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Yeah, I ended up on here a whole lot later than I was intending, but that's why I called it impromptu too. But the you know the thing is, I looked at her and I says, "You're looking rough." And she goes, "Well, the diagnosis and the doctors told me I'll be dead, that I'm likely to die next week." I looked at her and went, "Really?" I said, "Look, I got a really weird question for you. I'm not a doctor. I'm just here to visit my brother in here. But, and I don't want to touch you, but are you up to showing me the bottom of your left foot?" And she goes, "Yeah." I said, "Would you mind if would you mind kicking it loose? Kicking it out from under the covers just so I can take a look at the bottom of it. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm not even gonna get any closer." And she says, "Yeah, I can do that, son." So she kicks her foot out. And I bent over. I looked at the bottom of her foot, and I looked at her and went, "Nope, you're fine." And she goes, "What do you mean I'm fine? The doctor said I'll be dead. I'll be dead next week." I looked at her. I said, "Yeah, but you've got no expiry date." I said, "If you're going to die on that day, there'd be an expiry date that was visible, right? At least to my eyes. But you've got no expiry date, so you'll be fine." So a couple of weeks later, I came back to visit my brother. And here comes this little old lady, same little old lady walking down the hall. She's still on an IV bag because they were trying to bring her liquids back up. But she looks at me and she's got two doctors and a nurse with her. And she all of a sudden stops and looks at me and she goes, "That's the guy that told me I wasn't going to die. That's the guy that told me that you guys were wrong and I wasn't going to die." Right. And she looks, then she turns to me and she goes, "Thank you so much," and carried on her way. Well, needless to say, the doctors and nurses were a little bit caught off guard. Now back onto the other side. Um, Yeah, Lovey is saying that now I'm not sure which purview. I'm presuming you're referring to challenging the fact that they've listed me as epileptic. Okay. And that I could challenge the thing. You know, um, given that, there is an advantage for me to be listed as epileptic. they don't bug me about giving blood. And I frankly don't feel like going and giving blood, given that my veins don't work the same way that most do. Mine, according to the doctors, self-seal, which is really fun, but does cut down on bleeding. Of course, intriguingly, they also self-open, or self-vent, if you will. Now, Cindy, you are asking here, do aliens have psych trouble, or have they resolved their problems? Oh, heavens no. When I said that aliens, that other races, are the same in many ways as humans, I wasn't kidding. Some of them have absolute complications. Okay. I mean, picture, if you will, coming from a warrior race and being a pacifist, being afraid of hurting people. Okay. This is called a psychological problem. The Tekla themselves have a civil war because of a difference of psychological perspective. You know, and Philip, you've gone here and you've said you listen to good professors, priests, rabbis, imams, lamas, and teachers. You know, the reality is, if people are telling you that we can get along, that here's some things that you can do to cope with things, this is a good thing. Okay, you're absolutely right, lovey love. You know, lovey love is just going empathy, evolutionary adaptation for peace. Yeah, if you can feel what's going on, the last thing you want to do is start a fight. I know this from practical experience. Well, Cindy, it really is. Mind you, take a look at our politicians and the people in powers in the heavy industries. Some of these people have some bizarre ideas, and yet they're the ones developing the technology. Now, one of the things I always get a kick out of, you know, and my dad brought it to my attention. Bear in mind, my dad was an aircraft mechanic. And he says, the one thing that doesn't make sense to me is that our planes, our vehicles, our roads and even our buildings are being built by the lowest bidder. Not by the best tech, but by the lowest bidder. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense either. It was funny. Well, that would be an indication. It was funny. I was approached by a worshiper of Satan one day, and the guy looked at me and goes, I worship Satan. You will fear me. I have so much power." I looked at him and I said, "Wait a minute. Number one, you want me to fear you because you worship Satan. For that to happen, I'm going to have to do one of two things." Now, do understand, I call myself Christian because I do believe in God. I do believe in Christ. I do not believe that God is the top of the totem pole. And I looked at this guy and I said, "Why, pray tell, should I possibly worship, should I possibly fear you?" And he goes, "Because I worship Satan. I've got access to all this power and he can do all these things." I said, "Really?" I said, "Did you ever consider that Satan, by your teachings, is in a perpetual bad mood? So you're relying to somebody that's always in a bad mood to grant you power when you want it?" I said, "Somehow I don't think this is going to work well." Right. And he looked at me and goes, "Well, why don't you fear me?" I said, "Because by your own teachings," I said, "number one, I don't see the point. But by your own teachings, God threw Satan out of heaven with the power of his little finger. Now, what never made sense to me is where God got the little finger from. But hey, what the heck?" I appreciate that little piece of information there, Philip. Okay. Funny thing, Darwin does bring to mind something else, and I'll get back to that. But it was funny when Satan sat, or when the guy was sitting there. I said, "Look, if God's got that ability, now do understand, God is not going to straighten your life out. Okay, I mean, he will. You can absolutely use him for inspiration. Do I believe in him? Absolutely. Am I going to sit here and tell you you gotta believe in him in order to get ahead in the world? Absolutely not. Okay, but from that standpoint, there's very little in this world that I fear. I mean, granted, I am not a fighter. Okay. And can people beat me up? Certainly. Thankfully, I'm lucky enough not to have gone through that whole pile. You know, I'm just looking and, oh, that one I cannot give you an answer to. Okay, I can tell you this, that what you consider God, the one that created all we see, is overstated. But what you consider God is the one that created Earth. Okay, it was his kind. Well, no, in a direct sense, he's the one that created the animals and the whole 9 yards. But the thing, a friend of mine pointed out something rather remarkable. He goes, in the beginning there was God, and God said on the first day, he said, "Let there be light." Okay, and there was light, and it was good. On the second day, God created the stars in the heavens. Now, the question my buddy turned around and asked is, where'd the light come from? Because clearly it came before the sun did. You know, but that's always a wonderful little thing. Oh, Nathan, tigers and bears and snipers and things. You missed my favorite, Wolverine. And I don't mean the character in the comic character. I mean the fuzzy little 3-foot critter that is just nastier than heck. I get it, yeah. Philip's just going, Darwin was not a so-called social Darwinist. I wish more people knew this, and because I think it's encouraging to trauma survivors. The thing is, like, there is a site called the Darwin Awards, which I love. It's funnier than heck. Yeah, the honey badger. I mean, see, the difference between a honey badger and a wolverine is a honey badger, if you leave it alone in its cave, its little cave there, it'll leave you alone. If you try and drag it out, it's not nice. Wolverines, they'll just kill you because you got into their area. Now, don't get me wrong. Even with them, I don't fear them. I'm just not stupid. You know, they, at least I like to think I'm not stupid. There are times when I think I'm a complete idiot. But, or, well, probably not complete. There's likely parts missing. You know, but from my standpoint, it boils down to this. When you simply follow karmic law, you know, be true to yourself first, which is where my mouth gets me into trouble on occasion. Nathan, while you're sitting here, before I finish that thought, um, I do want to talk to you about it, not tonight by any stretch, but hopefully tomorrow evening if you've got time, and figure out how to get um buy me a coffee up and working, if you're agreeable to it. But no, karmic law is real simple, and these are the only three laws I personally follow. Be true to yourself first. Now, I've got a very simple line of thinking that I work with. Okay. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Okay. That means treat people the way you would like to be treated, not the way you fear they're going to treat you. Where is what I'm looking for? Thank you so much for that, Nathan. I do appreciate it. Here we are. This, guys, is the link to Nathan's show. Absolutely drop in on his show. Listen to what he says. If he says something that you agree with, absolutely give him a thumbs up and do subscribe to his channel. Okay, and then share the daylights out of it because he's got some really neat ideas. But yeah, the second law is do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. The third one, energy out, energy in. If you treat people, plants, animals, energy the way you desire to be treated, they will treat you in kind. Okay, this is where the law energy out, energy in comes from. Okay, it's cause and effect, if you will, or the law of causality. Let us shrink that back out of the way. Yeah, Phil's just going, tigers go to extremes to avoid people. However, a tiger who is a poaching survivor of human hunting has the world record for any non-human animal killing humans. That doesn't surprise me. I watched, I actually I watched a video, and who took it, I don't know. Right, but I don't know how you would do this. This guy was poaching African elephants. He was in a, Lord knows why he was in something that looked like a JLC, a little Honda hatchback. Why ever he was in something like that, I don't know. But the guy had been known to be poaching elephants. He lost track of an African bull. Well, the African bull took his vehicle and crushed it with him inside it. But how in tarnation can you lose track of an African elephant? You know, and yeah, you are absolutely right there. Lovey love, that reciprocation, balance, and karmic law, they all work really well. I think it was great what the tiger did. It's kind of like what the elephant did. The other one I saw, and what were they? Somalian pirates. Somebody had filmed this. One of them, presumably, they were sitting there, and they had a chimpanzee walk into the area. So they started pointing this machine gun at him and bouncing it up and down and showing him the trigger. They didn't shoot the chimpanzee. That would have been smarter, quite frankly. But they turned around and they showed this chimpanzee and were very clear on, with sign language, as it were, as in, here's how you hold it, it'll bounce like this, and here's the trigger, you pull on that and it'll do this. Right. Then they handed him the gun. And for some bizarre reason, they turned around, they handed him the gun, and he shot them. Don't know why. It seemed like the thing to do it to me. And no, lovey love, I have no use for poachers. I've got no use for bullies. Well, I do. They're great for shingling, but you have to slice them awful thin. What have we got here? Holy mackerel. I can see your point there, Cindy. Well, like I said, I wasn't likely going to bed anytime soon, but with that in mind, what do we got? Yeah, and Phil's just going on with his tiger. She fed on her targets. The poacher, who was her first target, had tried to kill her in front of her two cubs. Tigers are. I was lucky. About 30 years ago, I had the absolute pleasure. Okay, well, thank you so much for that, lovey love. I had the absolute pleasure of petting a live adult black panther. And I'll tell you, if you think a large cat has a rumbling purr, you should feel a purr on the black panther. Not to mention the fur. You know, I will, to be honest, much as I appreciate the compliment, lovey love, everything from here to here is going to be gone because in the summer, this gets way too warm. So I'm going to end up having to remove that. The hair, I am planning on keeping it short from here on out. We'll probably be looking at getting a haircut, just a trim, probably every 6 months or so at this point. But I go back 10 years and my hair, actually not even 10. In my early videos, right, my hair was way down past my elbows. You know, I just got to the point that I finally said I'm going to remove it. Yeah, see, I'm comfortable with the summer heat, but I don't need the beard is not necessary in the summer. I will probably, depending. I know my other half does not like beards. And for me, I don't have a problem having clean shaven. This is more a question of I don't go anywhere, and therefore it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. You know, so but with that in mind, guys, we are looking at this is amazing. I've been up longer before, but I do need to get some stuff done, I do believe. So I think what I'm gonna do here, yeah, quite probably. You know, wish I felt 15 years. Actually, in all fairness, I feel now I'm in better shape now than I was when, like, I'm 60 now, and I'm in better shape now than I was when I was 30. You know, but that being said, I'm gonna call it a night here. I got a bunch I gotta write. Tomorrow is Sunday, so I should be back on tomorrow evening. Okay, and I'll figure out what I'm doing. But one thing I've got to figure out is I got to get planning a little ahead and figure out what baseline topic I'm going to start with. Tomorrow's open topic. I don't have to worry about it for tomorrow. Okay, but I'll be back on tomorrow at 4:30 Pacific. That said, thank you all for sharing your time with me. I really do appreciate it. I cannot believe the amount of time I was on air today. But with that, what do we got? Yeah, but with that in mind, I will be back. Until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.